and my presentation and lecture today will deal with that. So now I will share with you my screen so that you can follow everything I'm talking about. Okay, do you see my presentation? Just yes, perfect. So since we are working in scientific institution, Institute of Archaeology, Belgrade, we are dealing also with various projects, but since the beginning, we started actually to develop storytelling regarding some other aspects. Since I belong to the project of Viminatium, ancient Roman city and military camp, I think that more or less all participants are very familiar with Viminatium and its significance. It's not only that it was on very good geographical position on a crossroads of important ancient roads, and also on Danube limes, protecting the empire from barbarian invasions. But also it gained very important status throughout antiquity, municipium, and a colony during the reign of Gordian III. Viminatium had the right to issue its own money, its own coins. And here you can see a reverse side of the coins minted in Viminatium. All of these factors gained a very important reputation to this city in antiquity, and it was some kind of administrative capital for the province of Mysia Superior. Now I will give you some basic information in its introduction, and then I will skip to the point. What is also good nowadays, also for researchers, and also when we are promoting our work, is that Viminatium is not so far from Belgrade. It is very well connected with roads and also with river, and you know that Danube is the river connecting the whole Europe. And generally here again, not only that in antiquity the position of Viminatium was strategically very important, but even today. Dragana, just remind me, what is the time of presentation? I don't want to be too long, so that I know.
Don't worry. I think we have enough time. Just
okay.
Take your time. It's
thank
great.
you. What is important to know is that for Viminatium, that was not some lost site. People knew about Viminatium, and researchers visited Viminatium, but also Viminatium was known in medieval period. Villagers knew about Viminatium by taking material from the site for building their own houses, courtyards, and etc. So let's say that first serious excavations of Viminatium started in the end of 19th century and beginning of the 20th century. And besides all of these informations that we know from historical sources, archaeological excavations, excavations of the architecture, of the buildings, of the small findings that we discovered, informations that we have also from the first researchers of Viminatium, for instance, Felix Kanitz, who was visiting Viminatium as well as many important archaeological sites throughout Serbia, left very important details, not only about the Viminatium itself, but also about how local community treated this heritage, exactly explaining, for instance, that cows are drinking water from one of the Roman sarcophagi. There are also some valuable photos that we have, and when we built the storytelling of Viminatium, and especially when we talk with our financiers from Europe and with people from where we got funding, we never skip to mention this visit of Queen Draga Obrenović and King Aleksandar Obrenović that visited Mile Vasić during the excavations of one section of the city, Viminatium city. Actually, the whole royal court was so fascinated with a visit, and on the queen's insistence, she actually gave 100 ducats to Miloje Vasić to continue excavations. So we always like to say that this is the first official donation to archaeological excavations in Serbia. And as you can see, donators are always better remembered. So even Kraljica Draga, as majority of you know, maybe our foreigner participants doesn't know, she was in that time publicity, and later on in all written sources, and even today she's remembered as one with a bad influence on a king. But in the case of Viminatium, you know, when we represent this story, we usually say, here is on this picture Queen Draga Obrenović, who donated money for the first archaeological excavations, and usually we skip even to mention the king. So sometimes in this storytelling, you can prove even some wrong facts from the history. Also, what is interesting for Viminatium, as I mentioned, which can contribute building those narratives and storytelling and interpretation, is when you have such a big, important archaeological site, but don't forget, Viminatium was devastated for a long period of time. The storytelling goes beyond the exact location of the site. So for instance, here you can see Smederevo Fortress, also on Danube, but let's say some 60 kilometers away from Viminatium. On here, for instance, Nivnik Monastery, where some spolia from Viminatium were built. And there are so many more examples of this, which means that by discussing Viminatium heritage, even today, we can talk not only about the site particularly, but we can also make connection for in some kind of cultural landscape. So sometimes we are using exactly the idea of cultural landscape to unite heritage throughout Braničevo and even Danube region. And these are good examples how this can be done. Of course, about this spolia, there are many papers that are written explaining the meaning, explaining the significance. For instance, this Medusa spolia in this monastery, and there is another one in Rugumija monastery as well, is showing us how, for instance, in medieval and later on in 18th century period, people didn't forget about some powerful stories from the past, because Medusa was remembered as a creature that had very important significance in protection. Her, of course, we all know that her look could petrify. And it is not by accident that exactly Medusa is the one with the biggest number of spolia that are built throughout, and not any buildings, but exactly sacral buildings, which means that somehow in folk tradition, the purpose, the role of Medusa as a protector remained, and even here in this sacral Christian context. Also, what is contributing to storytelling of Viminatium is not only historical stories, historical facts, but also things that happened throughout 70s, because the modern power plant of Kostolac B was built exactly at the position of Viminatium necropolis. And because of that, the focus of archaeologists in the 20th century were exactly on protective rescue excavations, because researchers knew that this section of Viminatium will be destroyed. And for this reason, Viminatium now has the largest necropolis discovered so far in the whole Europe, with more than 14,000 graves and discoveries with thousands of important findings. Among them, there are pieces of very impressive jewelry, as you can see right here. But this jewelry is not only important for researchers. You all know, because you're dealing with science, that sometimes some bronze coin can be more valuable than golden one if this is a very rare series. If we are speaking about some very rare findings, that could be more pressure in some other material. But for these wild archaeologists, those diggers who are going around, they are searching for gold, usually silver. They are going with these detectors for metal. And throughout all 90s of last century, Viminatium was dealing with this illegal robbery. And this is something that we wanted to stop. And it is not only about by stopping robbery. It was all about more, to be precise in my definition, to show local community that there are other values than this, and that they can appreciate the heritage in different aspects, and they can be included from different perspectives, as you will see later. So here you can see the example of a trade of a coin discovered at Viminatium, and you can see the price as well. And what is interesting, if you are going to these antiquaries in Belgrade even, and you go, once I saw in Skadarlija a coin from Viminatium, which as I mentioned you is particular because of this reverse representation of the protectors of province Mesia. So I saw one coin from Viminatium and I asked, oh, how did you get this coin? And they told me, oh, that is Ulpiana. You know, because this is like a safe zone, saying that this is Ulpiana, there is no some law that can protect this site. So, you know, knowledge is important, but sharing the knowledge is also more important in some proper way to wider public, because only in such a way we would be able to stop these kind of things. So having in mind all of these things, you know, we were under the threat of this illegal trade of antiquities, of constant robbery. We were surrounded, the city and the military camp were surrounded with these big machines digging and searching for coal. The first interdisciplinary excavation started from 2000s. And these were modern excavations of Viminatium using all modern technologies, led by Miomir Korać at that time. And of course, we knew the borders, as I said, for Viminatium, it was already known. And some sketches that Mihailo Valtrović left in the end of 19th century, when you compare them with these aerial photos, the similarity is almost the same. So he actually saw because in configuration of the terrain, you can see the borders of the military camp. So here is the military camp and here is the city, and necropolis would go all the way around. Right here would be Danube. So this is aerial photo, showed us that this is very huge area, more than 440 hectares. And this is which was discovered since 2000s. So remains of baths, amphitheater, Porta Pretoria of the military camp, mausoleum as a part of the necropolis. Thanks to the use of georadar and geomagnetism, we were able to detect other buildings and to make some kind of ideal reconstruction of Viminatium. Now we have a 3D model as well. So this is like ideal reconstruction of what archaeologists can expect in the future. And as I started my story, having in mind all threats that we had, and that we need to show to the state that archaeology and cultural heritage is equally important as economy and mining, we decided in 2006 to open everything that is discovered for public, exactly to show that knowledge that science are valuable, that these are resources that could be used by the state, by the economy, by the wider public, and to show that we can be competitive with all other taxpayers in the state. So regarding Porta Pretoria, northern gate of the military camp, of course, as soon as it was explored, the protective construction was made. And the first presentation of this remains started explaining the importance of roads as a connection, sewer system, channels, where was the position of Danube, where we would expect the Viminatium port, and etc. So it was speaking about the importance of military. So the storytelling was, let's say, make as a combination of sources that we have from antiquity, research data that we have from previous researchers, and also something that is detected at the terrain. As a part of the city, baths were discovered, probably public baths, because hoards of coins were discovered. In the same manner, protective construction was put on the top. And here you can see that there are remains of hippocaust and 5 pools, four were for warm water, 1 was for the cold water, basically, because you can see the 5th one is excluded from hippocaust, and that is why we believe this is Frigidarium. Now we have a colleague, Emilia Nikolic. She has a very nice project Modeco, co-funded by the Science Fund, where she was exploring exactly the materials, particularly the mortar, defining from technical aspects what are the stories that remained and what they were used in order to make this hydraulic mortar, and etc. And even she conducted several workshops where she actually tested the mortars that she prepared herself according to some recipes that she created. And here you can see the larger image of bats. And here, of course, the storytelling was created also by combining the story about hygiene in ancient times. What was the culture of this cultus, taking care of your body in antiquity, in Roman time, being clean, being healthy. And this is combined with the exactly remains, where, of course, latrina is also discovered here, and a huge furnace right here, but also small furnaces were dedicated to each of these pools, next to each of them. So we are then discussing about remains of ash. It is always inspiring talking about latrine, talking about hippocaust, and of course, we never miss a chance to show different layers, because these baths were in use from the 1st until the 4th century, constantly, until the 5th century. So there are several layers of floor. And then we usually say that history can be actually written by archaeological remains, because each of them testifies a certain period. At the mausoleum, this is also a protective construction. And here you can see how it looks like. This is Eastern necropolis called Pirivoj, discovered several graves, but this central one has a form of mausoleum, and probably type of funeral that was conducted inside was a bustum, where the body of the deceased was burned at the spot. Then we checked historical sources from that time, because mausoleum belonged to middle of the 3rd century. And the ruler from the middle of the 3rd century was Justinianus, and Zosimus a little bit later are discussing those events happening with Trebonianus Gallus and Justinianus. So in our storytelling, we are mentioning that there is a possibility that this mausoleum possibly can belong to Postilianus, but this is of course not proven. But in the end, for tourists, as a valuable piece of information can be used just knowing that one emperor could possibly die at Viminatium. If not emperor, then some person some important person. Here, excavations today, you see that the progress of excavations are still going on next to the thermal power plant. This is usually the team of archaeologists need to go ahead of these big machines 2 weeks before in order to save remains or small objects of the most important things, or to relocate important architecture objects if it is necessary. Otherwise, everything is going under these machines. And here is why it is important to communicate your scientific data and what you know and what you discovered with the public. What we realized when we opened Viminatium for public and for visitors is that we cannot be compared with Pompeii, we cannot be compared with Colosseum and those beautiful sites that are enough for themselves, you know, for them it is enough just to exist, nothing else. We knew that we need to add something in order to attract people, especially in Serbia. We didn't have a culture of people visiting archaeological sites. So we needed to start not from zero, but I think rather from minus, because this type of cultural tourism never existed in Serbia and people were not used to come. And then we add these guides or hosts dressed in Roman costumes. And one of the stories, because, you know, when we started all together, how many years ago? In 2006, that was even prior, well, let's say 20 years ago, there was a team alone trying to figure out what to say, how to make a story, how this path will be organized, what is the proper selection of the information that should be shared with visitors and not to overwhelm them with data. So we actually created the storytelling. We created this interpretation based on hosts and guides, but also since in this section of Pirivo next to the mausoleum, there is kept one original fresco painted tomb from the end of 3rd century in situ, and it is below the surface. So the mausoleum is beneath, below is another construction, and you need to go down in order to see it from the perspective of the deceased person. And then we realized that the best guide for this transition from this world to the underworld would be ancient Charon. So we created a costume. We gave him, you know, all the requisites that he needed. And we also had money to pay for our visitors because we didn't want them to force them to pay to the Charon. We took that. So Charon got his coin. We always had a lamp for visitors. And we really represented to people how it looks like going to the underworld in ancient times. So here you can see Miško Korać paying to Charon, the guide to the underworld in Viminatium. And I have to tell you that he was the lead of this storytelling creation, and we all contribute. For instance, Charon was my idea. And he always accepted the ideas of younger colleagues at that time. So the whole team of Viminatium contributed this creation. And Dragana, do we have time for one funny story? Yeah, okay. So since we are always contributing with ideas, oh, we can do that, we can add this, we can, you know, complement with this. So when we built later on our domus, you will see it, our research scientific center. And I was on my pregnancy leave. So when I came back, he started to showing up what is there, how it looks like. And he was like, and here is a reading room, and here is the, you know, the inscription, and here is the hall where we will drink whiskey and smoke cigars when we be successful, and all of these stories. And then he in one moment said, and this is, and I was like, oh, secret wall. And he was like, no. And he looked at our architect and he said, Emilia. And she was like, no more additions, no more things to add. So, and what I wanted to say, that we are not lacking ideas, and that basically when we all get together, so many things come out that that in the end, some of course we implement what is possible. So here you can see how these tombs inside in the underground look like. We are using not heating light for the lighting them. And here you can see the position of a visitor. So when we speak about interpretation, this should be combined, presentation, interpretation, and storytelling all together in order to have this experience, the real experience. So the purpose of the experience going on into the tomb, into the grave, was actually that your sight, your look is in the level where the body was buried, and that you're looking at these paintings from the perspective of the deceased person. So this is the right way to understand the meaning of these funerary paintings, the meaning of the grave, the meaning of Domus Eterna. Not to have these frescoes as some gallery paintings. Then we are missing the point. Only from this perspective, you're getting the right way of understanding what that means for Romans, why they paid so much attention to funerary practices, to funerary rites, and of course, to the grave itself. And of course, according to the interpretation of each fresco, of sources that we have, there is a storytelling about all of this. So for instance, here is the story of the mortal who was a pagan escaping from lion. Of course, for Christians, lion always signifies evil. So, and death. So he's, because they were put fighting with lions in arenas. So he's escaping death, coming in zone with peacocks. And this is aquavita, he's purifying his soul, some kind of baptism. And you can see that the movement actually show you where to continue the reading the story. So the whole movement, lion and a horseman going to this bliss world with peacocks. So the heads of peacocks are not in symmetrical positions, but showing you to continue on the next wall, where he became a Christian. He is now in blue tones. This is the south wall, not north as the previous one. He's followed by dog, one of the most famous psychopoms in ancient world. And in front of him, there is a leopard as a final scene, that he is facing in order to become a Christian. Usually Western wall in antiquity was dedicated for representation of portrait, because the portrait was supreme representation of the deceased person. Everything important from terrestrial life was put in the portrait. That was the force that needed to guarantee this remembrance for the afterlife. And every time, almost every time, the Western wall is dedicated to the portraits of the deceased person, individual or in couple. But here in this tomb, 4 persons were buried. And they decided, since they were Christians, not to use their faces, but they replaced their faces with the representation of Christ's monogram. Here you can see hero in Greek alphabet in laurel, right? So this is one of the storytelling showing the visitors why it is important to know some details in order that you can tell the story, because the painter himself wanted us to read the story, because all aspects are suggesting us that this is a circle way of reading this pictorial story. On the other hand, pagan tomb exactly representing why it is important to talk about individual in antiquity. So here is a representation of this beautiful lady. She's Matrona. As you can see, she's dressed according to the fashion from neck to the end, to the bottom. Only her hands are visible. This dress is very expensive. This is golden embroidery that we discovered in Viminatium, as well as remains of golden embroidery. She's wearing very expensive earrings, necklace. Her head is covered with a net. And this net is showing us that she died before her 20s, very young. But when you compare the story that you're reading from frescoes with the exact remains of her body discovered in the tomb, where discovered her hip bones, anthropologists detected that she was immobile, probably had rhinitis, and that was the reason why she died, probably. So you can see now when you compare data that are coming from anthropology, skeleton remains, and that are physical anthropology, of course, and here we have frescoes. When you combine these two, you can see that the painter actually represented only top half of her body, escaping to show legs. That really, according to anthropologists' analysis, she died before her 20s, and she's really here represented very young. We keep on talking about her because really, if you compare this portrait with other portraits from late antiquity, she belongs to one of the most beautiful representations, and this is really good quality of painting. So we can say that one very important painting of Ficina worked in Viminatium in the end of 3rd and beginning of the 4th century, because more than 30 fresco painted tombs are discovered, and probably will be more. We always talk about her beauty, her elegance, how she was fashionable at the time, that she has this mysterious smile. And then in our talking, visitors recognized Mona Lisa. So this title, Viminatium Mona Lisa, is not something that we invented and we wanted to create. We just said that this is one of the best painters of late antiquity. We said that she is one of the most beautiful models of late antiquity, and connection for our visitors probably was logic. So they gave, in the first years of the opening of archaeological park, they proclaimed her to be Viminatium Mona Lisa. And what is interesting now is that, as you know, in antiquity, people always wanted to be remembered. That is why they kept their portraits, inscriptions that you were talking about. And she gets this remembrance. Even today, after so many years, we are still discussing about her, representing her. And even she got popularity being compared to Mona Lisa. Of course, if you want to function successfully, we then created the network of roads, signs. There is a restaurant in the form of Roma Taberna. We have a souvenir shop, and some souvenirs are made as replicas of huge material that is discovered in Viminatium. Viminatium also has one of the greater typology of pottery material that is leading by our two colleagues, Angelina and Anna. But here is another interesting story that we faced at the beginning of opening archaeological park. That is that those people who first dig at Viminatium for selling those things, they actually came to buy our souvenirs to put them in the ground, to lay down for a while, and then sell them as originals, because they realized that the resemblance to originals is incredible. So what we did, we put a stamp like Viminatium 2006 or 2007 in order to stop reuse of this material. I have to be now faster. Viminatium Amphitheater started in 2008. Part of the amphitheater was reconstructed with the spectacles. And here you can have the comparison of Asian spectacles and modern spectacles in one architectural object. Here is our research scientific center built in a form of Villa Rustica. And here we have different events, laboratories, rooms for our researchers, for students who are coming to work with us. There is anthropology laboratory, huge library here. I expected the secret wall. And of course, the discovery of mammoths, very, very popular, not so Roman, but we use that to build paleontological mammoth park. And this is very nice because kids love that. And this is very, very complementary to everything that we are doing. And for instance, for these cruisers that are stopping at our port in Kostolac, storytelling needed to be much more simplified. And questions that you can get from them, you never can be prepared for that. There are questions about the smoke from thermal power plant, about the snakes, about the grass, about the grain, about the pollution, about... So if you want to communicate with those visitors, you need to be prepared. They are absolutely different than any other. So also, I will now fast myself, Dragana. I see that I have 5 minutes, yeah. Okay, so in order to communicate and have impression, here you can see pieces of pottery that are not part of some object. So we use them for this game. And here is a Latin, famous Latin quotes and translation in English. We put this all together. So people are selecting one of those. And this is like a fortune cookie, the truth that is waiting for them 2,000 years. And trust me, in 90%, it really gets true. And what we to conclude now, everything that we said, we did the research for one paper, my colleague Milica Tepavitsky and I. And we had many questions, but this one is the most important. Impressions about Viminatium are mostly influenced by, and look now, 40% the site itself and 40% guides. So equally, what you see and what you get is a storytelling, because we believe in a live world of people, and that is why we are not changing our guides for some audio guides that you can find elsewhere. Here you can see the visit, sometimes more than 100,000 people. And here you can see how now we are involving in all of our activities, local community, and trying to make impression on them that they can contribute in different ways to the cultural heritage and that they can use Viminatium from some other perspective. So all of our other projects are also, so they are now working in a kitchen. They now know to prepare the Roman food. And there is also a story about Roman food. So I don't want to go any longer because I want to very shortly to present your projects. Of course, we are hosting various events. We are making exhibitions, and this is one of the exhibitions that is also based on the storytelling representing the heritage of Roman emperors that are coming from Serbia, and this model of Viminatium, 3D model of Viminatium. Everything that is connected with the heritage of Roman emperors on the territory of Serbia, that is contributing our nomination for these frontiers of the Roman Empire and Danube Limes in Serbia, as you can see on tentative list on UNESCO from 2015. And here is the project where we want to replicate the model of Viminatium to other archaeological sites and to make them sustainable, again, showing to the state that archaeological knowledge, scientific knowledge really can be a huge contribution to the economy as well. And this is from our last exhibition. Can you imagine? We were in Curia Julia in Roman Senate last year, hosted by Archaeological Park of Colosseum. I will tell you, we are now proud when we say we have 100,000 visitors. Can you guess how many visitors Colosseum has per year? 7 million. And do you know how they get 7 million visitors per year? Because of the film Gladiator. what they told us when we met them is that prior to Gladiator, everybody took a photo in front of the Colosseum. Nobody wanted to go inside. After Gladiator, their visits are enormous. And the same thing is happening with Dubrovnik and the Game of Thrones. So sometimes the storytelling that is going, of course, beyond ours, this is something which is more entertainment industry, but that can contribute really popularizing what we are doing. Of course, if findings are so important, you can see here shares and views that we get on our social network pages can go beyond 2 million views and shares 25,000. We are now popular as a hotspot. People like to check in at Feminatium, and we realize that it is important to cherish the young public and children. And now our focus is on education and youth. We created games. We revived Asian games, providing them an opportunity to taste some of this. You can see that we make replicas of those toys from antiquity. But we also have science camps when kids can learn other science than archaeology, but they are also going to the field excavations, testing themselves being an archaeologist. And as Dragana said, in new millennial, we switched to digitalization, use new tools. This is digital archaeology that we communicated on Science Festival with students. And you can see how big are the rows. We participate in different projects on European level, sharing our knowledge one way or another. And here you can see how we use the Ficciones as one of the workshops where kids learn about those curses, interpret them, and write their own down, and then put them back in the soil. So in order to achieve this impression and a reviving of the atmosphere, now we have this huge educational center called Limes Park, where we can host 480 kids at the same time, with 2 big halls for conferences, kitchen, and even adventure park, where you can test your physical capabilities of being a Roman soldier. Danube camps and Viminatium camps are held now 3 times during the summer. For this summer, all camps are filled. Kids just love to be Romans for a day or for a week. And in this project of culture, we communicated in a funny way with millennials, with zillennials, let's say. These are younger millennials, Generation Z. We communicated with them our storytelling. We gave them some serious things to read, and you can see how they interpreted this to be popular for social networks, for communication with their year's companions. So here's some interesting, they of course, they provided some serious educational content, or this funny content, as you can see on the right side, when Romans meet the future. And of course, we were talking about now cannot escape TikTok and other tools being popular and present online. And Dragana, I'm finalizing with this, Creative Europe of the projects of the Institute of Archaeology. Currently, we have 3 of them. Vasilka will tell more about She Leaders We Are, because she's a partner for North Macedonia, and she's helping us to revive Queen Maria Palaolog. And what I wanted to say is that we were in charge for this deliverable, research and selection of women leaders in their residencies. We collected necessary data and material from all of our partners, and we're in charge to transform that together with scenarists, with a screen player, into something which will be easy to understand for everybody who is watching and listening to this VR application. So that was very, very interesting, let's say, challenge. we can talk about that, and if anybody wants to know how to transform scientific knowledge into the screenplay, and that was the challenge. So we can discuss this. Female character that we selected for Serbia is Milica Hrebljanović. And here you can see how it looks like now as virtual reality, but as I said, Vasilka will say more. And here we are speaking about another project from Creative Europe, where we have 3 factors together: archaeological sites, contemporary dance, and local community. You're welcome to Viminacium for the festival from 24 to 26 of June to see performances, which will happen. So look what are our partners here: Ostia Antica, Merida, Taros, Volos, and Viminacium. So we are really in a good company. And here you can see how it looked like. Again, all stories, all data, all knowledge that we had, we shared with our artistic partners, because these artistic performances has to be site-specific and community-specific. And this is something that there is no other project that has. And finally, our last project that started last year, end of last year, very, very young, is Stecha Clan, famous Stečci. You know all about them, under UNESCO protection. Now we will revive them, and all of these motifs on these tombstones will be alive thanks to the engagement of theater. So keep an eye on us. We will inform you about our results, and we'll be glad to share it with you. And of course, you're all welcome to visit Viminacium.